paralyzed by the sheer horror of what was happening, at least until she felt a blast of pain as it connected with the side of her face. Then she felt nothing. A bad end. Chapter 1. December 20. Rocky Mountains. The large overnight envelope was waiting for Carmen Jacobs on the porch. She grimaced as she glanced through the frosty window of the front door. Her first instinct was to ignore the unwelcome reminder of the outside world. She'd rented the isolated cabin in the Rocky Mountains precisely to forget the demands of her high-profile career. Or at least, that's what she'd told her literary agent. And in part, it was true. She'd spent the past 12 months flying from city to city to sign copies of her blockbuster book, The Heart of a Predator. Her hectic schedule had also included TV and radio interviews as well as speaking engagements. She'd even spent a month in California teaching a creative writing class. Soon it would all start again when the paperback version of the book was released. She deserved a break. But the deeper need to retreat to this cabin in the dead of winter was to avoid the yearly madness that was a mandatory part of the Christmas season. She wasn't a Grinch. Okay, maybe she was a little bit of a Grinch, but it wasn't her fault. She was a woman without a family, and, if she was honest, without any close friends. Usually it didn't bother her to be alone. In fact, she preferred to concentrate on her career without being encumbered by people who would be a constant distraction. At this time of year, however, she couldn't help but feel the lack of intimate companionships. Maybe it was the sappy commercials, or the sight of giggling children who darted through the stores, or the distant memories of when she hadn't been alone. Whatever the reason, she always felt the urge to retreat from the world during this time of year. And despite the fact she'd just celebrated her 26th birthday, she had the necessary funds to grant her wish. Sipping her morning cup of hot chocolate, she watched as the snow lazily drifted from the clouds, coating the porch in a pristine layer of white. In a few more minutes the envelope would be hidden. Problem solved. She took another sip, and then another. The snow continued to float in the air, silent, hypnotic, a swirling cloud of peace. She tried to force herself to turn away. Her plans for the day included a long, hot bath, a leisurely lunch, some primetime romance in the form of a paperback novel, and later, a bottle of wine in front of the fire. Nowhere in her schedule was a mysterious envelope. Unfortunately, Carmen had one deeply embedded character flaw: curiosity. It was the reason she'd snooped on her 8th-grade teacher after catching sight of the woman disappearing into a storage shed with the principal. That little adventure had gotten her kicked out of school, probably because she'd posted the pictures she'd taken on the classroom bulletin board. 3 years later, that same curiosity had urged her to sneak into her grandparents' attic to try to peek inside the small safe that had once belonged to her parents. She hadn't managed to open it, but she'd been caught in the act. Her grandfather had grounded her for a month, and her grandmother had cried. The tears had hurt more than being forced to miss the spring formal. On the brighter side, her curiosity had inspired her to become a journalist, and later to interview 5 of the most prolific serial killers to ever terrorize North America. The book she'd written after the nerve-wrenching meetings had become a #1 bestseller and launched her into the world of fleeting fame. Like disco balls and crocs. With a grimace, she set her half-empty mug on a nearby table. She wasn't going to be able to relax until she knew what was in the envelope. She might as well get it over with. Wrapping the belt of her heavy robe tighter, she reluctantly pulled open the door. An instant blast of frigid air slammed into her with shocking force. Crap! The cabin had looked so picturesque in the brochure. The pine trees, the snow, the majestic mountains. She hadn't really considered just how freaking cold it would be. Now she scurried forward, her fuzzy slippers sliding over the icy surface. She bent down, snatching the envelope off the edge of the porch. Next year, she was going to a sandy beach with lots of sun and fun. Straightening, she paused.